Robbie Bent, thank you for coming on the 15-minute founder. As you can tell, we're going to learn everything about you and your business in 15 minutes. So we're going to jump right in. This is maybe one of the favorite press release lines I've seen. Cult favorite Canadian bathhouse Othership prepares to land in NYC. What is Othership? And I have to read one more line. What does a stadium sauna built explicitly for fully immersive entertainment, classes, and performance look like with a stove space alone that is bigger than a Cybertruck? Over to you. Can you explain what Othership is and talk about this stove space?
Yeah, so stadium sauna is a sauna built for performance. So imagine a Cirque du Soleil show or your favorite concert compressed down into the largest sauna in the US. Custom lighting, subwoofers under the wood that rumble your body, incredible sound system, massive stove, 6 different heaters to get from 180 to 195 with humidity where guides are doing performances. Anything from aromatherapy-based snowballs that are smashed on the stove in sync with music, along with the art of towel waving to diffuse the smells. During the class, you might have breathwork, you might have internal visualizations and meditation, you might have deep stretching, you might have group singing. So there's 28 different classes. A big inspiration for us was taking things that happen in an environment with alcohol and moving them into a healthier evening environment. So in that sauna, you may have live music, people coming in and doing album release parties. You might have stand-up comedy, starting with an ice bath, moving in the sauna, watching 2 comics. So it's creating a new social environment that is both fun, playful, and healthy. And that's really the genesis of what Othership is.
Is it really the largest sauna in the US?
It is, yeah.
And there's a cold experience too. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the cold experience in New York, sunken, custom-built pools or ice baths. And so something that differentiates us from most spas is the temperature of the ice bath. We run them cold. There's some that are, 36 degrees, some at 38 degrees, some at 40 degrees, some at 44 degrees. So they sort of ladder up, whether it's your first time, but it's meant to be hard, challenging. It's meant to make you feel alive when you get out. So it's not so hard that you can't do it, but hard enough that you feel, hey, 16 of us all went through this experience at once. When we come out, it creates an instant connection with the person beside you. So it's really the hot and cold in this environment are ways to create conversation and connection with strangers. They kind of take away the friction, social anxiety we have in normal situations. So foremost, Othership is a place to connect, meet people, hang with friends, share. You're, in a bathing suit, you're not wearing any makeup. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes you have. It's like a great equalizer that creates this like safe environment where you end up having more deep conversations than normal.
Sounds like you've, and this might be in the name, you built this other space that replaces a lot of these maybe nighttime activities or activities where alcohol is the default activity. Is that how the name came about, or what does Othership stand for? Is it a spaceship experience? Does it look like a spaceship?
This is the logo here. I don't know if people can see that. Yeah, on my arm. It's actually the first toy in the world, the spinning top. And the spinning top is part of all cultures. And so it looks like a spaceship. It is a spinning top. And the idea is that wellness can be fun and playful. It doesn't always have to be serious. So Othership, takes these things that cause a great amount of discomfort and makes them fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. So it's this idea that like wellness can have a sense of play. And then Othership itself, the idea is these experiences, whether it's breath work, hot, cold, they take you on a journey and we're all on that journey together. So it's really about being yourself in a space with others and journeying together on this ship. And the other cool thing about Othership was it signifies where you're at. Is it apprenticeship, mentorship, friendship, relationship, partnership, all of these different ways that you can be evolving or transforming as a person, but doing it together in community.
Okay, I love the concept and what this is replacing, what you can do in the space. I want to get a little tactical. Let me start with a hot take statement. There's no point in doing saunas. It's quack science. What is the point of heat therapy or immersion? Can we actually talk about some of the science here? When you are doing, let's start with the hot experience. Let's pretend we're going through the experience. What are the benefits, whether it's spiritual or whether it's physical benefits of actually being in this immersive sauna?
Yeah, firstly, just from a science perspective, we actually never talk about this in our marketing because we don't really care. And so it's not a space for biohacking. It's not a recovery space. But to argue the science now is to argue against Mark Hyman and Andrew Huberman, the top neuroscientists, doctors, performance doctors in the world. Like, it's proven. So it's not, I don't think anyone's out there saying like, hey, exercise is bad for you. It's kind of similar. You're putting your body under stress, and as a result, your body's detoxifying through sweat, categorically good. There's been studies over 20 years in Finland, a number of studies and more studies coming out that show 50% reduction in cardiovascular disease, 50% reduction in Alzheimer's, reduction in all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease, the biggest killer in North America. So I'm pretty certain 10, 20 years, all doctors will be prescribing the sauna if they aren't already, as like a low-cost way to mimetic exercise. So yeah, like the benefits are clear, but we don't even need to sell that because that's not why people are coming to Othership. People are coming to put their phone away, to be in a city, to be in a space together that doesn't involve alcohol, where they can take part in conversation. And that is what is super special. So a million benefits. Like for me, it's clear that based on what I just said, sauna is better for you or as good for you as exercise. Amazing for longevity. So yeah, my response to that is like, this has been around since the beginning of time in all cultures, almost all cultures outside of puritanical cultures, religious-based cultures like US, Canada, and the UK have a sauna practice. So, in Russian, it's the banya. In Finland, it's the sauna. In Japan, it's the onsen. In Turkey, it's the hammam. In Mexican culture, it's the temazcal, the sweat lodge. So, like, human beings getting hot and sweating has been around since the beginning of time, which to me always means that, like, this is definitely good for you.
I gotta say, that's pretty epic how there are all these benefits, but you don't even talk about them in your marketing. To entertain us here, I guess this is a cold take now, but what is the benefit of doing cold exposure, ice plunges, even though y'all don't include it in your marketing? Can you talk a bit more about that?
I mean, the number one benefit for me personally is just reduction in stress. And for us, a big secret, I'll talk about now, we're not really targeting wellness customers. They come, but it's mostly average 9 to 5 people living in a city with a job. They're stressed. They're looking at their phone all day. Living in a city now is super hard. If you have your phone, you're on social media, you're on email, you're on Discord, you're on Slack all day long. It never ends for any human being. And so for me, when I'm stressed, I just get in the ice bath and it's like instant meditation. I'm like instantly present. There's nothing else I can think about because the effect on my body and nervous system is so strong. So you're boosting dopamine, you're boosting norepinephrine, neurotransmitters that are responsible for like focus, clarity, this feeling of being alive. And so when I get in the ice bath, like there's a ton of other benefits, but for me, it's like instantly, I've had a coffee and I'm sitting and I find my breath and like, oh, you're never going to make it. The work is too hard. What does this person think about me? Oh my God, am I being a good dad? Am I a good partner? All that stuff just goes away. And I do have a lot of experience with meditation, but something that was hard to fit into my day-to-day and hard to teach others. And so the ice bath works for every person every time. Like there's just no way you're going to be worried when you're in an ice bath. So there's a lot of stuff around like reducing inflammation, improving the immune system through increase in white blood cells, improving your metabolism, increasing your metabolism. So however, for me, the only reason I use it is because it's a de-stress and I feel good instantly. There's also some talk from Andrew Huberman about repatterning your dopamine. And so I used to struggle. And if people struggle with like ADHD, cocaine use, coffee, this is a way to boost dopamine, but then leave it at a sustained higher level. So we have a lot of people who love running, used to do drugs, used to use alcohol, and this is a new way for them to get stimulation, but it is healthy. So that's why I personally use it.
Okay, I was already sold, but now I think anyone listening, there's some pretty strong points there. I do want to zoom out here. I can get the sense just from the first couple of minutes here, you care a lot about what you're building. I just get that sense. And it feels like it's more than, again, from the outside in, it's like, oh, it's another biohacking space. Or like, who would use this outside of someone who believes in the science behind it? But it feels like you're actually creating this new space, replacing and changing things about you as an individual or the communities you're in, the people you're around. I also did see, and I want to get into the business here, you guys are venture-backed, you've raised capital. Venture-backed businesses typically are ambitious. They have these moonshot goals. What's the grand vision here? What do you view this as evolving into? Does Othership evolve into the spaceship, and what does spaceship look like?
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning, we knew we were onto something special. It started in my backyard. Myself, my wife, another couple, and 5 friends actually started with a horse trough in our backyard, and it was free. And it was just, hey, let's build a healthy community in Toronto. And that grew into 300-person WhatsApp. You join the WhatsApp, you could show up at any time of day. It was just free. There'd be 15 people in the backyard all day long. And the idea was like, how do we create a healthy community in Toronto? It became cold, so we converted our garage. So like anyone could do this. We just converted a garage. It was 5 best friends, and we're like, fuck yeah, let's just make this awesome thing for the neighborhood. And that grew into thousands of people. And when we did that, we started getting the idea for these classes, which have now become performances in the sauna, but classes on releasing anger, couples classes where you do like an eye gaze and a guided massage and then share about your first date. Things that could get people into a mode they're in when they do therapy or group therapy, but in a way that there was much less friction to get there. And in that space, we saw people becoming friends, starting to date, changing their life, quitting drugs and alcohol. And we're like, holy shit, this is really powerful. And so we self-funded the first unit. And within a month, 3-week wait lists, the classes, which we were like, I don't know if this is mainstream, were definitely mainstream. People wanted loving kindness and acceptance and emotions. And then at night, they definitely wanted to party together sober in like a new way. And as soon as we saw that, we traveled to, New York and LA and Miami and Dallas and all around the world to 70 different bathhouses, and never really saw anything like that, focused on the hot and cold as tools for transformation and community building. It was mostly spas. And we saw that, we're like, wow, this is, something we built from scratch, scripted, created, and it's very unique. And so like, let's take that shot. And so we raised money to, it ended up taking 2 years from start to finish, but we're now open officially as of last week in Flatiron. And the goal was to like put our name on the map as sort of the leaders in this emotional wellness programming in a stadium sauna and cold environment. And since we started, like, things we never imagined have happened. So in New York, for example, we partnered with Daybreaker. We threw a 220 person party with 3 saxophonists, a trombone person, a DJ, multiple dancers, fire dancers, magicians. And it was like seeing people in all generations, 20, 30, 50, 70-year-olds dancing together sober in the morning, smiling. I was like, wow, this is fucking powerful stuff, And I get messages every day like, hey, I met my friends here. This has changed my life. I've stopped X bad habit. I've processed this emotion. And so when you see something like that happening that's changing a city for the better, there's a lot of inspiration of, okay, how many cities can we get to? People really need this. So the goal is that, maybe you've never done anything like this before. You've never done therapy. You've never done meditation. You're just stressed. You don't know where to start. This is an environment you can just come to, have fun, feel good, meet other people interested in that, and potentially just feel better in your day to day. We just call it like, hey, it's a space to feel good now.
One thing I love hearing about the origin story is you might see the Othership launch, you might see that sick branded video y'all have, and you're like, damn, overnight success, they got lucky. 2 years in the making, DIY in the garage, visiting 70 plus bathhouses. I love hearing those tidbits because there's so much below the tip of the iceberg. I want to ask you this because I like to know what makes founders and entrepreneurs tick. There are usually 4 main driving forces that motivate someone. It can be a combination, but usually it's either money, fame, power, or pleasure. For the Robbie of today, what would you say is the main driving force and why?
Yeah, they've changed throughout. When we created something from scratch in our backyard, it was like a bit of ego. Like, oh, can we do this on the U.S. stage? Like in New York and Flatiron, the fucking best health and wellness neighborhood in the world. Like, I'm from Guelph, and it was kind of, I guess, fame would be the one of like, I built this with my co-founders. We built this. We want to be the ones to put it out there. And the thought of like someone copying it and beating us to it was like a dagger in my heart. So that was like a real driver. As we got closer and we've opened, that's no longer, you kind of, I remember I had written like, I want to be on the Dave Asprey podcast and the Ben Greenfield podcast. And I'd listened to that every day. And then I got on those podcasts and like nothing had changed. And the problems have gotten significantly more difficult to the point where, sometimes I want to quit. This particular unit was so challenging. We were double the budget, way delayed. There was problems with permits. We had to switch our construction team twice. At some point I was like, I don't even know if we're going to get to open. And so these like fake drivers, they start to fail. They start to become less important. You start to see they're empty. So now money is an important one, but just like we've signed loans, we've signed leases. We're all in on this. And so if this was to go poorly, like I would personally be bankrupt. And so I'm a dad. And so the thought of like, not money, like, hey, I want to make $1 billion, but just like, holy fuck, from a safety standpoint, like brick and mortar is no joke. And I think in my head when we started, I was like, oh fuck yeah, like New York, LA, let's go. Of course, be so easy. Toronto first unit, we did it right away. It was a smash success. And building 1 and building 5 are just completely different things, what you have to focus on. And it's been a big punch in the face. Luckily, like the businesses are really successful and the brand is going incredibly well, but the back end operations are 10 times harder than I've expected. Everything has cost more. The complexity has been stacked and stacked and stacked. So now the focus is just like, whoa, okay, you know, I need to, I'm actually forced now. I can't walk away. And so then I think pleasure, an interesting one on that, you know, when I've been so stressed the last few months, is going into the space and watching people's faces and just hearing. And so like, cause sometimes we started this in our backyard. It wasn't meant to be a business. It was just something we cared about, building a healthy community. I was a drug addict, so it really helped me. And so there's a lot of passion there. And as the business got bigger, I mentioned the ego, money stuff, it kind of takes over. And so what helps me is to go back in. And like last night, and you said you're going to class tonight, but last night someone shared, hey, I'm 4 years sober. You know, I was 8 years working in a bar, and this is the first time I found something social and a place where I can go and like be myself. That's at night. It's like, oh fuck, that's incredible. And someone shared like they were in a really bad car accident and they were really struggling because they couldn't do what they used to be able to do, you know, a year ago. And they were just like, this is a space that makes me feel safe. And so when I see that kind of stuff, it feels like a more pure drive than these other things, but there's obviously a mix of all of them.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to go maybe one level deeper here. It sounds like you've personally started out as, hey, this is just for us. Holy crap, this can be way bigger. Now there's dreams of expanding it, and also this can't fail. There's people depending on me, and maybe there's some ego there, but that's okay too. It's like, hey, we know we can do this, we can build it. I actually want to understand more about your psyche. You mentioned that there's some days you want to stop, some days you want to quit. Could you just talk about your habits and routines? Like I geek out on morning routines, for example. So question here is, can you take me through a typical day in the life, starting from the morning? You said coffee and cold plunge, but take me through a typical day, habits, keystone habits that you fall back on to get through this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have, like, before we started, this is how my wife was really into health and wellness. She's a dietitian, nutritionist. She got me hooked on Ben Greenfield podcast maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Rhonda Patrick, we learned about hot and cold. It was one of our first dates. So it's like something we've been doing together for a very, very long time. And, you know, when I was back then, I was working out, you know, 3-4 times a week, fasting, measuring my macros, CGM, all the biohacking stuff. And in the last 5 years, it's just gotten more and more and more difficult. And I've also had a son. So my son's 2 years old. We all actually live in a house together in Williamsburg, like 5 co-founders plus 5 employees. There's 10 of us. Sometimes there'll be 14 there, a dog, a baby. It's fucking hardcore.
Wait. I got to sorry to cut you off here. You co-founders all live in the same house together with family?
We all live in the same house in Williamsburg with like our kids and dog, and you know sometimes there's grandmas there and like you know other guides, and it's a 3-story house, and we just decided that it would be best for culture of the business if we all live together and like push this mission forward. And I used to work at Ethereum, and so I had lived in a bunch of hacker houses and seen how good it can be for early culture. So the idea was like, let's attack this new city together, and like we're all in it, but it's hardcore, man. And so you know I basically wake up, I drink a coffee, I work pretty much all day, and then and there is no routine anymore. It's just like get up and work and like do what needs to be done. It's more of like the Alex Hormozy vibe of like, yeah, you can have your routine and all this stuff, but the reality is the work, and you just have to do it. And I haven't seen any other way around that. So I used to then also for the first couple of years I'd have a 1-week break and do like a Vipassana or a dark retreat in a cave or Hoffman Pro, some like big thing to like reset my thought patterns. And even now I've kind of quit doing that. And so it's like I get up, I drink coffee, I try to eat healthy-ish. I'll go for walks a couple times a day, and then at night I'll go to Othership and I'll do at least 3 Othership sessions a week. And the hot cold like keeps me sane. But from a routine standpoint, between being a dad, a husband, and work, it's like crowded out everything else. And so it's like a regret. I'll look at people who are super healthy and be like, fuck, man, I remember those days. Like, you know, so I think when you get so, especially as an aspiring entrepreneur, when you start and you get so into it, it's like really hard to have these like daily habits. And I've also seen other people say, hey, they have to work out to stay sane. So for me, it's like, I do the hot cold, I work with my wife and my best friends, I lean on them, I go into our space to look at customers' faces, and then when I really can't take it anymore, I'll take a 1-week break and do like a reset. But I haven't done that in a while either. You know, we started building our second unit, it launched in November. New York in parallel launched in July. We have another New York lease that like I probably shouldn't have signed, but I did, and now I'm like fucking, I don't even have time to like perfect these operations. We're now like on to the next one. So it just, there's too much going on right now that it's just like get up and deal with it.
That's real. I have two follow-up questions here. How do you drink your coffee?
Black.
Black coffee. Okay. 1 cup?
So I'll go like, okay, no caffeine, just yerba mate, then a single shot Americano. A couple weeks later, it's a, regular Americano. Then it's a regular Americano and a single shot in the afternoon. And right now, as of today, I'm back to like 2 Americanos. So not crazy, but 1 in the morning, 8 a.m., I go for my walk, I have my coffee, I'll sit for half an hour and just kind of, and then I have another one around lunch, but just black Americanos.
And I appreciate your candor around the work it takes and how it's you work and that's it, and then you wake up, do it again, and you look at customers to keep you going. Can you share if you have any hacks or best practices for how you get work done? What's worked well for you?
Yeah, I'm not the most like organized. Like I just go like brute force. I just get up and fucking go. Like if we've got 10 calls, I'll book 10 calls. Like right now we're like trying to figure out our construction. What works for me is like bias for action. And I've also seen some people are so organized. My friend from Levels, Sam Corcos, if you ever follow him, it's crazy how structured he is, the tools he uses. Like I'm probably not delegating well. I'm just brute forcing like what's in Discord, what do I have to do, what are my like 2 things today. But like we're trying to figure out construction and getting our costs down. So I'm just like, okay, I need to talk to 4 MEP vendors. Like today, let's go. Get on a phone. Let's fucking come into the space. Let's meet. GCs, like let's go. Like whatever. It's just like moving. Once I make a decision, like bias for action, moving and like going hard and fast at something and just like figuring it out. I find that has been like pretty helpful with how fast we're moving. But I don't really have any like specific hacks. I guess my only suggestion would be like do what works for you.
Yeah, I personally think strategy is a multiplier on execution, but it's on execution. If you're not doing anything, then right, ideas are cheap, but execution is where it happens. And then once you're actually putting in reps, you can actually optimize the process. But you got to start, and it takes. I think that's the other thing too. As I hear you tell your story, it takes a ton of work and volume, reps and mistakes that will happen too along the way.
Yeah, and that's just kind of what it is. Like I tried to used to be perfect, and like now I'm like, I was like, oh, we're gonna do construction right. We have X, Y, Z, and people who've done it before, like looking at investors were like, yeah, okay, and like exactly what they said. Took longer, cost more. Even having done 10 different builds before, and like 2 of these in New York, and it's just learnings. Like it takes. That's what I like, this idea of like what is reversible, what's irreversible. That's like a nice framework. So like signing a lease in the wrong place, it's irreversible. Fucking up a build is like kind of irreversible in terms of like the cost, but it's not as bad. Like if you have a bad build but you make it up on the back end, fine. So like what decisions are irreversible versus reversible, and the ones that are reversible, like move super fast and like go, and we're just trying to get people in as fast as possible. So like really having bias for action and like moving fast, I think is helpful. And then on the back end, focusing on like what are your 1 or 2 priorities. So right now my main priority is just like getting our construction costs down. That's it. That's like my only focus. And that's like, if I succeed in that, it's massive. So I think having like your 1 or 2 clear priorities and then like bias for action and everything else is a nice, I guess, strategy.
That's real. I want to ask you another maybe philosophical question here. Across your experiences in life, people you've met, what you've seen through Othership, what's an important truth that very few people agree with you on?
So this is like a new one that just came to mind, and like it's been a struggle as we're scaling. And so, we'll have 1,500 customers a day across our locations. We have hundreds of thousands of people that use our app, hundreds of investors, hundreds of employees. And so something negative is going to happen like pretty much every single day. And I think as an entrepreneur, you get in the sense of like, oh, I'm a good person. I want to be a good person. And the reality is like, you have to let all that go. Because decisions you make, to some people, they're going to think you're a bad person. They're going to have their own story. And at first, it's like, oh, every single interaction is important. And I still like think that to a degree. But I've just had to let that go as like I see people like not happy with the experience, not happy with the work they're doing for me. Like just things go wrong all the time as human beings. And it's very easy when you're not in entrepreneurship to like gloss over and like, oh, the world's a good, fun place. Everything is great. And like, it's not. And so there's just a lot of friction in life. And I think people don't understand that like to start a business, you have to lean into that friction, and it's going to happen in almost every conversation. So that has been new for me. I think I was like very wide-eyed and optimistic when we started, and just seeing the level of like what can go wrong and how often it happens has been pretty eye-opening to see that, and then still maintain optimism for what we're doing.
Would you say that's a realization that you can't be a people pleaser, and sometimes you intentionally know you're not going to please people? Like the mass sum, you obviously want some really ecstatic people who you have a great interaction with, but knowing that there's going to be many people in the wake of what you do that are going to be unhappy, and just coming to terms with that.
Yeah, that, and then also like, look, people aren't gonna like your brand, and it's kind of like if you're, in high school and you go and ask a bunch of girls out, and they're like, "Hey, you're a loser," no, and it like hurts you. It's like, and then when you build something, it's like feels like a part of you. And I have people all the time like, "Oh, that class was cheesy," or "That playlist was shit," or like, "I went in and the people were rude. You need to improve your hospitality." And it's like, man, even our reviews are like 5 stars on Google. Like they're crazy. Like, and I have so many people sharing, but there's, every day I get the negative reviews sent to me directly. So we collect reviews from everyone who comes in. And so, there's 5 a day, and they're like soul wrenching. And at first it's like, oh fuck, how do we fix it? And then you realize like, okay, I'm just going to have to take it and let go. And so that the reality of life of like, as you grow, like having haters is also something that like I wasn't familiar with. So I think just being less optimistic about life and more like accepting of yeah, exactly what you said.
That's real. I'll just say that that's real. And I do want to finish up with a couple of final questions, but you mentioned some people might not like the brand, whether that's the business, whether it's you as an individual. What would you say for you personally? What would you say your brand is? And then you talked about some of the impact that you want the company to have, but let's fast forward 10 years and we're sitting here recording again, or maybe we're in the Othership experience recording in a new location. But if you could look back, like what type of impact would you want to have and have your brand and impact be?
Yeah, I mean, I think creating the first ever space of its kind where you can go deep into your emotions, share about those with others, socialize in a new way, building these like real community spaces that help people become friends and explore themselves. Part of the reason that we worked on Othership, I struggled with addiction. I tried meditation. I tried psychedelic medicines. I tried all these things. And this just seems like a more accessible way to get people to feel good now and be more of themselves. And so to me, like what success would look like is that something like this, whether it's Othership or not, exists in every city. And it's just an entry level into learning more about yourself. And when I'm watching, and when you go tonight and you see the shares in the class, it's like, fuck yeah, we made that. That didn't exist before. There was no environment to like really do this in a socially acceptable and fun way. And so I hope that this spawns tons of competitors and copycats, and like, the idea of like sauna and ice bath to connect is everywhere. And that would be awesome. And then I hope we build more like, retreat centers on top that you can meet your friends at Othership and then go on retreat together, and concerts that you go to that are sober. And so just I think there's like a long way to go for what I want to do, and I'd be happy to do this for the next 20 years.
All right, what's your final piece of advice? There's many aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start a business. They probably were inspired. I've been inspired just listening to what's happened, but some might be like, holy shit, I didn't realize it's going to take all of that and I have to deal with this too. If you could go back, would you do it again? And then what's your advice for the person out there on the fence but not quite ready to take the plunge?
Yeah, I think I would do it again because I'm building something that I like really care about, that we created. It wasn't like, hey, let's make money from this. It was, started in a backyard for fun based on something my co-founders are personally obsessed with. And so like Friday nights we would create breathworks for our app because it was fun. Saturday we'd have like sauna parties because that's what we do. Like my 40th birthday was at Othership. It was a surprise party. It's my favorite place in the world. So it's just a place, a community. I'm doing it with my best friends, and the level of connection we're forming with each other is like through work is like one of the best ways you can meet and deepen a relationship with someone. If you're friends and you have friction, you just stop seeing each other. If you're coworkers, like you need to figure that shit out. And so the depth of a relationship has just been like spectacular. So having that experience, I would highly recommend. So I would definitely do it again. But I've built other companies that failed completely, and I look back and was like, fuck, why did I try that? Just for money. Money was the driver. I want to be rich. And that's why I was looking MVP, find an MVP, test it, and raise money and all that stuff. And yeah, it failed. And when it was failing, which all startups have tough times, there wasn't enough juice there to be like, I have to make this work. It was just like, fuck, I hate my life because I was building like something in telecom to reduce roaming prices. Like, who gives a shit about that? So I think it's really hard if you're trying to think about what you want to do, like find something that where you doesn't necessarily have to be your deepest passion, but something where you care about the problem and solving it is exciting. And then have a long time horizon. Solving a problem in 60 days is basically impossible. Choosing something to work on for 5 or 10 years, there's a lot of, it doesn't happen that way every time, but if your time horizon, like for me, for Othership was 20 years, and we just go ahead and build 2 units per year, that's not a massive thing to do. And then we'd have 40 units, it's a massively successful business. So what I've learned is like thinking in longer time horizons is the biggest piece of advice. You just are able to better build a network, be able to build compounding advantage. So long-term time horizons, people aren't competing on those either, but people who are looking to like jump into AI right now and raise venture money and get something out in 3 months, you're competing in like an intense environment. So I think if you can let compounding work to your advantage, that's massive as an entrepreneur. So my advice would be like find something where you're passionate about the problem and can see yourself doing it for a longer period of time.
That's a way to finish. Robbie, thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find this location in New York? And can you give a sneak peek on where the next location is?
Yeah, so 23rd West 20th, so it's just in between Madison Square Park and Union Square Park, like right in the heart of the Flatiron District in New York, accessible by subway. It's open 6 a.m. till 1 in the morning, Monday to Sunday. There's massive parties, as we said. There's emotional wellness classes. There's like quiet free flows with cellists and journaling. You can come in at any time for either a class or a free flow or use the space on your own. And the newest space is at 25 Kent in Brooklyn, so we should be starting construction relatively soon as we like figure out how to get our costs down. But yeah, it's 25 Kent in North Williamsburg on the border of Williamsburg and Greenpoint.
We have a lot of founders in our audience who are also international. Is international expansion in the cards?
Yeah, I would have told you 4 years every city, but I got my ass handed to me in New York, and so there's a lot of learnings, and now we're trying to prepare to scale up. But I think an Othership would work super well in London, in Miami, in Chicago, in Boston, Washington, Mexico City. So the goal is to do this for 20 years, and we'll see where we can get.
There's just under 200 countries, so 2 a year, 100 years, it's doable. Thanks a ton, Robbie.
Awesome, thank you.